Picture this. It's 2003 Fallujah, Iraq. A battered Toyota pickup takes a direct RPG hit to the bed. The explosion tears off the tailgate, shreds the rear tires, and leaves a crater where the spare used to be. 3 hours later, that same truck, running on wheel rims and sheer willpower, limps 40 miles to safety carrying 6 soldiers who shouldn't be alive. That truck, it's now hauling hay in Montana. Original engine, never rebuilt. While your neighbor's $85,000 Raptor needs a software update to start, there's a breed of nearly indestructible machines built when military grade wasn't marketing, it was survival. Today, we're counting down 12 legendary trucks that laughed at war zones and refused to die. Stick around because number 1 survived a landmine blast and drove away. Number 12, Nissan Patrol Y60, 1987 to 1997. Here's something they don't mention in Nissan commercials. There's a Y60 Patrol that spent 11 years with UN peacekeepers in Somalia, survived getting shot 14 times, and now lives a peaceful retirement hauling tourists through the Australian outback. Still on its original 4.2-liter TB, 42 inline-6 making 125 horsepower. Not impressive power numbers until you realize this engine was designed by engineers who understood that 125 horsepower that always works beats 400 horsepower that doesn't. The Y60 wasn't built to win drag races. It was built to start every morning in 130-degree heat after sitting in a sandstorm for 3 days. Solid axles front and rear, coil springs that actually work, and body-on-frame construction back when that meant something beyond marketing. These patrols served with Australian military forces who chose them over Land Cruisers because mechanics could fix them drunk with a hammer and curse words. UN operations in Bosnia, Somalia, and Cambodia proved the Y60's worth when European vehicles quit and American trucks needed parts that didn't exist. One documented case from Chad tells it all. A Y60 operated by Médecins Sans Frontières for 12 years covering 412,000 miles on dirt tracks that would total a modern SUV in weeks. Required maintenance? Oil changes, 1 clutch at 280,000 miles, and a set of injectors. That's it. The engine was never opened, the transmission never rebuilt. It just worked because Nissan built it before accountants ruined everything. You can find clean Y60s for $12,000 to $22,000 in markets where legal, which is insane value for a truck that refuses to die. But does Japanese reliability match what Toyota accomplished with proper military construction? Number 11 answers that. Number 11, Toyota Land Cruiser 70 Series, 1984 to present. Listen to this. In 2019, a mining company in Western Australia retired a 70 Series Land Cruiser from active duty. It had been in service since 1985, 34 years. The odometer showed 1,247,000 kilometers. That's 774,000 miles for Americans who refuse to adopt metric. Original 4.5-liter 1FZFE inline-6, never rebuilt. Original frame, never replaced. The company donated it to a museum because even they couldn't believe it was still running. That's not marketing. That's engineering. The 70 Series is what happens when Toyota builds a truck without compromise. No cost-cutting, no good enough, just brutal over-engineering that assumes you'll be 200 miles from the nearest mechanic when something breaks. So nothing breaks. These trucks served in Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Yemen, and every conflict zone you can name since 1984. They mount machine guns. They carry troops. They haul ammunition through landscapes that would make a Raptor driver cry for their mother. And they just keep running. Here's the crazy part. There's a verified account from Yemen of a 70 Series that operated for 8 years without a single day of downtime. Think about that. 8 years. Every single day, someone turned the key and it started. It accumulated 380,000 miles hauling supplies through active combat zones before finally being destroyed by an airstrike. The engine? Mechanics salvaged it, dropped it in another chassis, and it's still working. Toyota builds the 70 Series today, 40 years later, because nothing replaces it. You're looking at $35,000 to $55,000 depending on market, and honestly, that's cheap for immortality. But does Toyota's legend match what American military engineering accomplished with diesel simplicity? Number 10 answers that. Number 10, Chevrolet K30 CUCV, 1977 to 1986. The U.S. military doesn't screw around with trucks. When they needed something to replace worn-out M-Series vehicles before the Humvee arrived, they didn't design something new. They took the civilian Chevy truck, stripped out everything unnecessary, and built it to survive soldiers who view maintenance as optional. The result? The CUCV, Commercial Utility Cargo Vehicle, powered by the 6.2-liter Detroit diesel V8, making a whopping 165 horsepower. Pathetic by modern standards until you realize this engine was designed to run on whatever liquid burns, maintain power at 10,000 feet elevation, and start in Arctic conditions that freeze modern diesel trucks solid. Over 160,000 CUCVs deployed worldwide. They served in Iraq during Desert Storm. They operated in Alaska where temperatures hit minus 50 degrees Fahrenheit. They hauled supplies through Central American jungles where humidity turned electronics to mush. And here's what's wild, most of them are still running. There's a CUCV that served with the National Guard for 18 years. Deployed to Iraq, accumulated 425,000 miles of abuse, then sold at surplus auction for $4,500 to a farmer in Montana. That farmer has put another 80,000 miles on it. Zero mechanical failures. He changes the oil, and it rewards him with immortality. The beauty of the CUCV is stupid simplicity. Mechanical fuel injection, no computers to fail. TH400 3-speed automatic that's basically a paperweight with gears. Solid Dana 60 axles that laugh at modern independent suspension. When it breaks, and everything breaks eventually, any mechanic with a wrench and a beer can fix it. You can still find these at surplus auctions and private sales for $6,000 to $15,000, and that might be the best value in automotive history. But does American military diesel match what the British built for colonial operations? Number 9 answers that. Number 9. Land Rover Defender, 1983 to 2016. The Defender has a reputation for being unreliable, and honestly, in civilian hands it's deserved. Electrical gremlins, rust issues, and Lucas Electrics that quit when you look at them wrong. But here's what nobody tells you. Military-spec Defenders, the ones built for British Army, UN operations, and NGOs working in actual war zones, are completely different animals. Strip out the luxury bullshit, remove the unnecessary electronics, and what's left is an aluminum-bodied truck that refuses to die even when you want it to. Case study, a Defender 110 operated by Médecins Sans Frontières in Sudan from 2003 to 2014. 11 years in one of the harshest environments on Earth. Summer temperatures hitting 130 degrees Fahrenheit, where rubber literally melts. Winter sandstorms that strip paint and destroy seals. Roads that would total a Jeep in the first mile. That Defender accumulated 383,000 miles, documented in service logs because NGOs track this stuff. It survived bullet impacts. It operated on fuel contaminated with sand, water, and probably camel urine. When a water pump failed, mechanics welded in a Toyota part because that's what was available. The 300 TDI 2.5-liter diesel, making just 111 horsepower, kept running because it's so simple that you can rebuild it with hand tools in a desert. Here's the controversial truth. The Defender's reputation for unreliability comes from rich people treating them like luxury SUVs. In actual service, strip-spec Defenders with no electronics and basic diesel engines are nearly indestructible. You're looking at $35,000 to $65,000 for good examples in the US market now that they're legal to import. That's expensive, but you're buying a truck that proved its worth when failure meant dying in a ditch. But does British engineering match what the Germans built for NATO? Number 8 answers that. Number 8, Mercedes-Benz G-Class Military, 1979 to 2003. Before the G-Wagon became a status symbol for Instagram influencers who've never seen dirt, it was designed specifically for the German military with one requirement: survive conditions that kill everything else. The early military-spec G-Wagens, the ones that served with Bundeswehr, Austrian mountain troops, and NATO peacekeeping forces, represent German engineering when cost wasn't the primary concern. Under the hood, the legendary OM617 2.7-liter 5-cylinder turbo diesel making just 90 horsepower sounds pathetic until you understand this engine was designed to run 500,000 miles in conditions ranging from Arctic Norway to desert training in Spain. Portal axles give these trucks ground clearance that embarrasses modern rock crawlers. 3 locking differentials mean you can drive up vertical walls if you're brave enough. And the construction, ladder frame, solid axles, and body panels that bolt on for field replacement creates durability modern G-Wagons can't touch. There's a documented case from Austrian mountain troops of a G-Wagon that accumulated 522,000 miles over 22 years operating in alpine conditions. That's 22 winters of snow, ice, and salt. The original OM602 2.9-liter diesel never required rebuild, just injectors at 380,000 miles and routine maintenance that a trained monkey could perform. Here's what's insane. These military G-Wagons are simpler to maintain than modern Mercedes sedans. The diesel engines share parts with 1980s Mercedes cars that are everywhere. No DEF fluid, no emission systems that self-destruct, no touchscreens that require dealer programming. Just a diesel engine, a manual transmission, and the understanding that soldiers aren't mechanics. So design it to survive abuse. You can find military surplus G-Wagons for $28,000 to $55,000, depending on condition and import hassles. That's expensive until you realize these trucks have proven they outlast everything modern Mercedes sells. But does German military engineering match Toyota's commercial-grade immortality? Number 7 answers that. Number 7, Toyota Hilux, 1978 to 2004. Top Gear tried to kill a Hilux. They drowned it in the ocean overnight. It started. They set it on fire. It started. They dropped a building on it. It started. That episode made the Hilux famous in Western markets. But in conflict zones worldwide, the Hilux's reputation wasn't built on TV stunts. It was built on decades of service where failure meant death and the truck simply refused to die. The 2.4-liter, 2-liter diesel, making 76 horsepower, and 3.0-liter, 5-liter diesel producing 91 horsepower, became legendary not for power, but for starting every single morning, regardless of conditions. The Hilux serves as the technical vehicle of choice for irregular warfare because it's reliable, cheap, and parts are available everywhere. It operated in the Afghan-Soviet War, the Lebanese Civil War, Gulf War, Syrian Civil War. Every conflict since 1980 features Hiluxes because when you mount a machine gun in the bed, you need a truck that works. One documented case from Somalia tells the whole story. A Hilux operated by a logistics company for 15 years, accumulated 447,000 miles on dirt tracks that would total a modern truck in weeks, survived 3 separate IED blasts that damaged the body but not the drivetrain, and continues operating today requiring only one engine rebuild at 320,000 miles. Here's what makes the Hilux legendary. It's not sophisticated. The 2.4-liter, 2-liter diesel is agricultural machinery, indirect injection, mechanical pump, no electronics. But that simplicity means village mechanics anywhere on Earth can fix it with basic tools. It runs on fuel quality ranging from pump diesel to kerosene mixtures that would destroy modern common rail systems. The solid front axle, leaf springs, and body-on-frame construction survive abuse that breaks everything else. Clean older Hiluxes run $15,000 to $30,000 in markets where legal, and that's a bargain for a truck that literally survived wars. But does Toyota's commercial reliability match American military agricultural engineering? Number 6 answers that. Number 6, Dodge M880, M890 military, 1976 to 1981. The U.S. military needed trucks cheap, reliable, and simple enough that 18-year-old conscripts could maintain them. Dodge's answer? Take the civilian D-Series truck, build it to military specifications, and keep it so simple that failure becomes nearly impossible. The result was the M880 and M890, trucks powered by the 318 cubic inch, 5.2-liter LA Series V8, making 150 horsepower. That's Mopar's legendary small block, the same engine that powered millions of civilian Dodges, Plymouths, and Chryslers, because it was proven to run forever with oil changes as the only maintenance. Over 50,000 M880/M890 trucks served worldwide. They operated in Germany during Cold War. They hauled supplies at desert training bases where 120-degree heat destroys modern trucks. They served with reserve units who maintained them poorly and drove them hard. And they just kept working because the 318 V8 is basically agricultural equipment, cast iron block, simple 2-barrel carburetor, and engineering that assumes the operator is an idiot. One documented M880 served with Army Reserve units for 25 years, accumulated 382,000 miles including deployments to desert training exercises, then sold at surplus auction for $3,800 to a rancher in Texas. That rancher has put another 90,000 miles on it with 0 mechanical failures beyond routine maintenance. Here's the magic. The 318 V8 shares parts with millions of civilian Mopar vehicles. Need a water pump? Auto parts store? Starter? Any mechanic has one. Transmission rebuild? The TH727 is so common that transmission shops have cores stacked like firewood. You can find surplus M880/M890 trucks for $5,000 to $14,000 depending on condition, and that's insane value for a truck that's proven military grade. But does American simplicity match Japanese durability that won rallies? Number 5 answers that. Number 5. Mitsubishi Pajero, Montero, 1983 to 2006. The Mitsubishi Pajero won the Paris-Dakar Rally 12 times, more than any other vehicle in history. That's 12 victories in the most grueling motorsport event on Earth, racing thousands of miles through Sahara Desert conditions that destroy everything. But here's what's more impressive. The same engineering that won those rallies translated directly to military and commercial vehicles that served in war zones for decades. The 2.8-liter 4M40 turbo diesel, producing 125 horsepower, became legendary not in Western markets where nobody cared, but in Asia, Africa, and Middle East, where reliability means survival. The Pajero served with Japanese self-defense forces, NGOS, throughout conflict zones, and commercial operators who needed trucks that worked. There's a documented case from Afghanistan that tells the whole story. An NGO operated a 1994 Pajero for 14 years in conditions ranging from mountain passes at 12,000 feet elevation to desert heat that melts modern trucks. The Pajero accumulated 418,000 miles documented in service logs. It survived multiple impacts from road debris. It operated on fuel contaminated with sand and water because that's all that was available. Mechanics performed field repairs using parts from Toyota Land Cruisers because that's what they could source. The original 4M40 diesel and transmission were never rebuilt. They just worked because Mitsubishi engineers understood that rally victory and war zone operation require the same basic trait: reliability. The beauty of the Pajero is that it delivered Land Cruiser reliability at Nissan pricing. The 4M40 diesel is simple enough for basic mechanics to service with limited tools. The Super Select four-wheel drive system provides capability rivaling trucks, costing twice as much. Clean older Pajeros run $8,000 to $20,000 in markets where diesel variants are legal, making them possibly the best value in war-proven trucks. But does Mitsubishi match the legend that literally defined military utility vehicles? Number 4 answers that. Number 4, Willys Ford GPW Jeep, 1941 to 1945. Every truck on this list owes its existence to one vehicle, the World War II Jeep. Designed in just 49 days by Willys and Ford to military specifications, the GPW, General Purpose Willys, became the most important vehicle of the 20th century. Over 640,000 units deployed worldwide in conditions ranging from North African desert heat to Russian winter cold to Pacific Island jungles. The 134 cubic inch, 2.2-liter Go Devil inline 4 made just 60 horsepower, but that was enough to haul supplies, mount machine guns, and prove that simplicity creates reliability when sophisticated engineering fails. Here's what's absolutely wild. These Jeeps are 80+ years old, and thousands are still running. Not in museums, actually running, working, driving. There's a documented GPW that served in Europe during World War II, returned to the US in 1945, worked on a farm in Iowa for 40 years, then sold to a collector in 1985. That collector has driven it 18,000 miles in vintage rallies since purchase. Original engine, never rebuilt. Original transmission, still shifting. The only modifications? New tires every decade and a 12-volt electrical conversion, so modern batteries work. 80 years old, still works. That's not restoration. That's engineering excellence. The Jeep's reputation for reliability comes from brutal simplicity. Flathead 4-cylinder engine with just 3 main bearings. 3-speed manual transmission that's basically a box of gears. Transfer case that's overbuilt because engineers assumed soldiers would abuse it, and they did. No power steering, no power brakes, no electronics. Nothing to fail except basic mechanical components that any mechanic could fix with 1940s tools. Clean, running GPW Jeeps command $25,000 to $50,000 plus today, and that's actually reasonable given that you're buying an 80-year-old vehicle that still works perfectly. But does American World War II engineering match Soviet Cold War simplicity? Number 3 answers that. Number 3, UAZ 469 Soviet military, 1972 to 2003. The Soviet Union didn't design vehicles, they designed survival equipment. The UAZ-469 represents that philosophy perfectly. Build it so simple that conscript soldiers with minimal training can maintain it in conditions ranging from -40 degrees Fahrenheit Siberian winters to Central Asian deserts. The result is a truck so crude that Western automotive journalists mock it, and so reliable that it's still operating in former Soviet nations 50-plus years after production began. Under the hood sits a 2.4-liter gasoline inline-4, making 75 horsepower, primitive, inefficient, and absolutely indestructible. The UAZ-469 served in Afghanistan during Soviet operations from 1979 to 1989. That's 10 years of mountain warfare in conditions that destroyed sophisticated Western vehicles. These trucks hauled troops, supplies, and weapons through landscapes where roads meant slightly flatter dirt and maintenance meant whatever parts we can improvise. One documented case from Russian Agricultural Collective tells the whole story. A UAZ-469 operated for 28 years in Siberia, accumulated 447,000 miles in conditions ranging from -40 degrees Fahrenheit to muddy spring thaws, and required only routine maintenance, one clutch replacement at 260,000 miles, and minimal repairs. The original engine was never opened. It just worked because Soviet engineers understood that sophistication fails, simplicity survives. Here's what makes the UAZ-469 legendary. It's so simple that village mechanics service them drunk. Solid axles, leaf springs, and body-on-frame construction that you can repair with welding equipment and curse words in any language. The 2.4-liter inline-4 shares parts with Soviet cars and trucks spanning decades. If one part doesn't fit, another will. Clean examples run $8,000 to $18,000 in former Soviet nations, or $18,000 to $35,000 imported to Western markets where they're exotic. That's cheap immortality. But does Soviet military simplicity match American agricultural engineering that serves worldwide? Number 2 answers that. Number 2. International Harvester Scout, 1971 to 1980. International Harvester didn't build cars. They built tractors and farm equipment that needed to work when crops depended on it. When they designed the Scout II, they applied that same philosophy. Build it like a tractor that happens to carry people. The result was a truck that served with National Guard units, Forest Service operations, and commercial users who needed something that worked. Under the hood, the 345 cubic inch, 5.6-liter V8 producing 197 horsepower represented IH's agricultural heritage. This is tractor engineering adapted for highway use, meaning it was overbuilt to survive abuse that would destroy trucks from manufacturers who cared about profit margins. The Scout II served in roles ranging from military training vehicles to fire service trucks to commercial operations in mining and logging. One documented Scout II tells the complete story. Operated by U.S. Forest Service in Montana from 1974 to 2006, 32 years of service. Mountain operations in winter conditions that destroy modern trucks. Accumulated 384,000 miles hauling equipment and firefighters through terrain where pavement is a myth. Survived multiple rollovers from unstable mountain terrain because the body-on-frame construction and Dana solid axles made rollovers survivable events rather than total losses. Required 2 engine rebuilds at 180,000 and 340,000 miles, but the transmission, transfer case, and axles remained original. After retirement from Forest Service, it sold to a rancher who's put another 60,000 miles on it. Here's the Scout II secret. International Harvester engineers didn't care about sophistication. They cared about starting every morning regardless of conditions. The IH V8 engines are agricultural equipment, the Dana axles are overbuilt for commercial trucks, and the construction assumes the operator will abuse it. Clean Scout IIs run $12,000 to $28,000 depending on rust severity and modifications. That's reasonable money for a truck that proved itself in service where failure meant expensive downtime or dead firefighters. But does American agricultural engineering match the absolute legend that literally refuses to die? Number 1 answers that definitively. Number 1, Toyota Land Cruiser FJ40, 1960 to 1984. There's an FJ40 in a museum in France with a special plaque. It operated for the Red Cross in Chad, one of the most hostile environments on Earth, for 18 years. It accumulated 622,000 documented miles on dirt tracks through desert heat that melts modern vehicles. It survived 3 separate landmine blasts that destroyed the suspension, shredded tires, and damaged body panels. but never touched the 4.2-liter 2F inline-six engine that just kept running. When Red Cross finally retired it after 18 years, they shipped it to France as a museum piece. The engine has never been opened, never rebuilt, never required major mechanical work beyond routine maintenance. That engine, after 622,000 miles in a war zone, could drop into another FJ40 tomorrow and run another 500,000 miles. That's not an anomaly. That's normal for an FJ40. These trucks served in literally every conflict and humanitarian crisis since 1960. Vietnam War, Middle Eastern conflicts, African civil wars, South American operations, every United Nations mission, every NGO operating in hostile territory. Why? Because the FJ40 simply refuses to die regardless of conditions. The 2F inline-six is so overbuilt that it's essentially two 2.1-liter 3-cylinders welded together. Solid front and rear axles that survive landmine blasts. Leaf spring suspension that works when coil springs would break. Body-on-frame construction so robust that you can cut sections out and weld in new metal with village-level equipment. There's a documented case from Australia of an FJ40 operated by a mining company that accumulated 1.2 million kilometers, that's 746,000 miles, on its original engine and transmission. Never rebuilt, just oil changes, maintenance, and the understanding that Toyota built the FJ40 to survive the apocalypse. Clean FJ40s now command $50,000 to $180,000 plus because collectors recognize these trucks represent peak automotive engineering. Vehicles that literally cannot be killed through abuse, neglect, or war. This isn't a truck, it's automotive immortality in steel and aluminum form. This is what engineering excellence looks like when compromise isn't acceptable. And there you have it, 12 off-road trucks that survived actual war zones and refused to die. From Soviet simplicity to Japanese over-engineering, these legends prove they used to build them better. Thanks for sticking around till the end. You're the kind of person who appreciates vehicles built to last, not built to lease. Check out our video on the most reliable engines ever built, power plants that refuse to quit. Hit subscribe because we expose truths modern marketing won't tell you. Real trucks don't need extended warranties. They were built to outlast everything.